matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hey, Taylor.
Hi.
See, was that announcy-ish?
It was. I really liked it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Would you like to introduce us since I remember all the time?
Yes, and I'd like to thank all of our new listeners from Blue Sky, which is just like another social media network that I joined, and we have 53 followers, and they're not people we know.
Seriously?
Yeah, because a person named, let me look, Dr. Um, who was it? Some wonderful person. No, Dr. Lindsay Fitzharris, who has 40,000 followers, who was a historian. She reposted us because I had sent something to her about Amelia Earhart because she had said something about Fred Noonan, and she said, "Doomed to Fail is such a great concept for a podcast," and shared it. So I don't know, 53 followers, hopefully new ones. So okay, now we'll introduce us.
Thank you, by the way.
So thank you and welcome, new and old people, to Doomed to Fail, where the podcast that brings you history's most notorious disasters and epic failures twice a week, every week. And I am Taylor, joined by Fars.
Yep. We are joined here together on this glorious, glorious day. Thanks for doing that, Taylor.
Yeah,
Somebody brought up blue skies to me.
I mean, there's so many places on the internet. So I
Do
just want to
you
like grab someone's attention, you know?
do you remember for like 5 minutes there was this huge backlash way back in the day about Facebook's data policy. And this
Hmm.
company launched, it was when we were living in LA, where it was going to be free and it was going to be a social media network and it wasn't going to sell you your data, it wasn't going to sell advertising. And it
Hmm.
was like all just black and white, looked like a newspaper. Do you remember this?
I don't know. It all
Okay.
looks the same.
To your point, it's like
Yeah.
every week there's a new one.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'll join this one. I'll join that one. I'll get us out there. So,
I joined Threads for like 5 minutes and was like, why am I here? I don't want to be here at all.
I mean, I'm not doing anything scientific. I'm not doing anything different on the different sites. Like our
You're not working the
stuff,
algorithms? You
I'm
haven't figured
not.
out
I
the
mean,
algorithms?
dear God. No, my everything that I post on Instagram automatically posts to our threads, but like that doesn't mean anything. You know,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
out there. It's out there. If you could find us. We'd love it.
Well, the fact that you're doing it is appreciated. So
Thank
we'll just leave it
you.
with that.
I appreciate it.
Um, Sweet. So today we're gonna do a story from your neck of the woods, and is this gonna be one where I'm gonna be guessing? Since I guess we're not gonna be doing fairy tales today.
Actually, we kind of are.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know. And
Good guess.
I thought there's something else that I want to do it's a little bit longer and I got a book about it and I was listening to it and then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm actually flying to Washington State on Thursday and I was like, I should listen to this book on the plane. That makes a lot more sense, you know? So I decided to do something else because our friend Morgan mentioned something that you mentioned in our last episode, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much more to this story." So I'm going to have you guess. And I Wikipedia'd the list of most best-selling fiction authors, and I remember how we talked about this with Agatha Christie
Right.
when we talked about her. That like the list is ridiculous, and the Wikipedia list actually says, "Quote." This is a dynamic list and may never be able to satisfy particular standards for completeness. So, you know, it's a guesstimate. But this person is on that list of the best-selling nonfiction authors, and he is right behind Tom Clancy. And again, like the estimate is insane. So he wrote 44 books, and he sold anywhere between 100 and 600 million of them. So, like, thanks for that very specific data point. But he's on the list. Who do you think that could be?
Is it
They're
Peter
ch
Benchley?
no, they are children's books, obviously, because we're talking like they're kind of like I don't think you'd say fairy tales, but they're children's books.
Goosebumps.
No, but that's such a good guess. No, they're not chapter books, they're just like regular books, and they rhyme. And there's been movies and Broadway musicals about them.
I don't know.
Okay, it's Dr. Seuss.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I try my best.
You know what's
Um,
funny? I actually thought Dr. Seuss was like a made up human that like
yeah.
a major book publishing company was like, let's make him sound really professional. Call him Dr. Seuss. That's a silly name.
So it seems like it would be. And that reminds me, like, VC Andrews. Have you ever heard of her?
No.
So she writes like absolutely bonkers books like Children or Flowers in the Attic. Do you remember that one? Did
I've
you ever hear that?
heard of that one. I heard that's
Which
one of
is
the like a really sad or scary book, right?
it's so incestual that like I remember being at a hotel with my family, like my extended family, we were like hanging out in like the living room of the hotel room, and there was the Flowers in the Attic movie was on TV, and it's so confusing because all they do is have kids with their brothers and their cousins because they're like locked in this attic for a part of it, and like it's a whole thing.
Thank you. It just
And
came back to me. I remember.
yeah, and I like was looking at a family tree and I couldn't even figure it out looking at a family tree. I'm like, this is wild. But VC Andrews as a person died a long time ago, but they were still writing books under her name for a long time after she died.
Oh, interesting.
So that definitely does happen, but that did not happen with Dr. Seuss. And I want to show you all my Dr. Seuss books. These are the ones from
Lorax?
when I was a kid. I have the Lorax. I have How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I have The Sneetches and Other Stories, which we'll talk about. I have Happy Birthday to You, which is lovely. I have these kind of like random ones. I have I'm Not Going to Get Up Today and Miles of Reptiles, which are like, to your point, like kind of in the style of Dr. Seuss and by his like what is it by? His like the Cat in the Hat's Learning Library. So it's just like about like in his style that they still make today. I also have, of course, Horton Hears a Who.
Of course.
And then I have a couple other ones that I actually have bookmarked things to share with you. So I will share with you those in a little bit. But um, they are they're good. So let's talk about them. Um, we'll talk about his political messages, some of his faults, some cancel culture things, and then some of his like most famous work.
You're saying cancel culture was a thing when Dr. Seuss was alive too?
No, it is a thing now, and he was involved in it.
No,
So
jeez.
I
Okay.
have some examples.
I'm gonna have limited patience, but we'll go through it.
So Theodore Seuss Geisel. Seuss is a real name. It was his mother's maiden name. So I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's a real name. He was born on March 2nd, 1904, in Springfield, Massachusetts. His mom was Henrietta. His dad was also Theodore. His dad ran the family brewery until Prohibition, and then his dad became the supervisor of parks in town. So they were like well off, fine,
Normal.
whatever. In 1925, Theodore went to Dartmouth, and he was the editor of the humor magazine that started in 1908 called the Dartmouth Jack-O-Lantern, which is still around. And he loved writing for it, but he got caught drinking gin in his dorm with some friends because it was Prohibition. He got in trouble, and he had to stop doing his extracurricular activities.
Why was it called the
And
Jack-O-Lantern? Was it just like a Halloween only?
no, I kind of looked it up. They call it the Jacko. I feel like it probably was like, I feel like it would make people uncomfortable if they read the archives of it.
Got it.
You know, like we could talk about that probably separately.
That can be a separate
Yeah,
story.
yeah. Like, um, but he was forced to resign from the paper, but he still wanted to write and contribute. So he just wrote under the name Seuss instead of Geisel, which is like, seems easy to figure out, but whatever, he had to
Again,
keep
they didn't
writing.
have internet. They couldn't just go on Facebook and find
Yeah.
that out.
So, but so he still was writing and he wrote kind of, all through college. He went to Oxford after undergrad to try to earn a PhD in English literature. While he was there, he met a girl named Helen Palmer, and Helen was like, "Dude, you are such a great and talented artist. You should do this instead of your PhD." So he dropped out of school, and Helen would say later, Ted's notebooks were always filled with these fabulous animals, so I set to work diverting him. Here was a man who could draw such pictures. He should be earning a living doing that. Which is supportive and cool. She was
Wait,
like,
so
"This is
Dr.
cool. Share it."
Seuss drew the pictures himself?
Yeah. Yeah, he wrote and drew all of these.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Like, and it's so like specific, when it's a Dr. Seuss drawing. It's really cool.
Yeah, I've
Um,
been to several art galleries in the past few years where they have like a Dr. Seuss section where
oh,
it's
fun.
like some of them are originals of his
Hmm.
drawings and some of them are just like like 3D like statues and busts that were created of his characters that like
Fun.
it looks so much more interesting in like three dimensions, like when you see them.
Yeah, and I know I don't later I'll tell you that he lived in La Jolla, which is near San
No
Diego.
way.
Hmm.
Okay, because where I saw the first one of the, well, I guess it wasn't in La Jolla. It was close though. It was in Laguna
Yeah.
Beach, on its
Yeah.
way to La Jolla from LA.
That makes sense. Like you said, there's a lot of places you can see it, but I feel when I drive through Joshua Tree National Park that I live next to that there's no way he didn't drive through Joshua Tree
Oh,
National Park.
absolutely,
Like
absolutely.
yeah, like
The
it's just
tree,
so
yeah,
to see it in there.
the greenery there, like the fauna is just like so. No, the flora is just so like weird
Yeah.
and otherworldly.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like he had to have seen it because that's what a lot of his trees look like. It's like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, so he did a lot of drawings. Oh, that also reminded me when we were in, I want to say Prague or maybe in Italy, went to a Tim Burton exhibit that was similar to that. They had like sketches he did on a napkin at a bar, and you're like, oh my God, this is so cool. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
very distinctly him and like really cool. Um, so he left Oxford. Helen was going there as well, but they both left. They were married in 1927. She might not have been able to have children like physically, but anyway, they didn't have kids. He would say, "You have the kids, and I'll entertain them." Like he wasn't interested in having his own kids. Um, she also, Helen, wrote some books as well, and they were co-writers on a movie that I'll talk about in a little bit. So now it's like the late 20s and the 30s, and he has some jobs doing things like cartoons for the Saturday Evening Post, stuff from different magazines. He does a pesticide called Flit. He like draws their characters. So he's like getting these advertising jobs that are actually paying him a fair amount of money. And people loved it. As like we were just saying, it's like very Dr. Seuss. Like his illustration style is like really, distinct. His first book that he illustrated was actually not something that he wrote. It was a collection of like sayings and jokes for kids. It has such a good name. It's called The Pocketbook of Boners.
Is that is that a, is that a joke? Are you doing
I
a
feel like
bit?
no, I feel like boners means like a joke. So it's called The Pocketbook of Boners, and the second one is called More Boners.
Man, we're so innocent.
I'm super mature and I laughed at that. So, um, in 1936, Helen and Ted were traveling around, and he said that the way that his boat was moving was made him want to start writing things in verse. It just like reminded him of poetry, so he wanted to start doing things that rhymed. And so, thank God he did, because that's a lot of his fun stuff is the rhyming stuff. Um, so the first book that he wrote was "And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street," which is about it's a reference to a Mulberry Street in Springfield, so kind of going back to his hometown. Um, his second book was Miles's favorite book. It is the Miles is my son, he's 7. It is Horton Hatches the Egg, which I will show you right now. It is about an elephant named Horton
Yeah.
who sits on a nest for an entire year. And the bird, Maisie, who he was supposed to be sitting on the nest for, she disappeared to Palm Beach. And some hunters found Horton and they took him to America and they sold him to a circus. And circus gets down to Palm Beach and Maisie sees him and she wants her egg back. And Horton doesn't know what to do. He gets off the egg and she's like, "It's my egg, I want it back," because he did all the work. And all of a sudden the egg starts to crack while Maisie and Horton are like staring at it and trying to figure out what to do, and they're in the middle of the circus. And then the people came shouting, "What's all this about?" They looked and they stared with their eyes popping out. Then they cheered and they cheered and they cheered more and more. They'd never seen anything like it before. "My goodness, my gracious," they shouted. "My word, it's something brand new. It's an elephant bird. And it should be like that." Because Horton was faithful. He sat and he sat. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant, and they sent him home happy, 100%. That's
I
it.
can tell you've read this to Miles 100 times because
We
you picked up all the right inflections and tones.
we can say, I think by memory, like the first three pages. We've read it so much. She loves it. But it's about, being loyal and saying what you mean. And he always says, I meant what I said and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. So it's lovely. And that's the first time we hear Horton. We'll hear him again in Horton Hears a Who. So then it's World War II. And this is the stuff that gets a smidge controversial, and we'll talk about cancel culture. So, and I'll show you. Um, Dr. Seuss was a liberal Democrat. He wholeheartedly supported FDR, including the bad things that FDR did, like Japanese internment camps. You know,
That little thing.
yes. So some of the stuff is very, very stereotypic of Japanese people, the political cartoons that they drew during this time. There's one, you can see it on Wikipedia if you want to. It's essentially sh saying that Japanese people, drawn in a very exaggerated way, are hoarding TNT, waiting for a signal from home to attack in America, and that's why they need to be in camps. So that's bad.
That's on his Wikipedia page.
Yes. So he did that. Later, he's gonna tone it down a little bit and be like, kind of take that away, but it's complicated. And there's a lot more complicated stuff between him and Japan. But I do want to mention that Horton Hears a Who is about it's about the Allied occupation of Japan, and it is dedicated for my great friend Mitsugi Nakamura of Kyoto, Japan. So he did dedicate Horton Hears a Who to his Japanese friend, and he's like figuring it out. Um, in 2021, his publisher, so there's still like a Dr. Seuss publishing, arm, they stopped publishing six of his books. That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, If I Ran the Zoo, McElligot's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, Scrambled Egg Super, and The Cat's Quizzer. So I have three of those that I've had my whole life, and I will show you kind of what people mean. So If I Ran the Zoo is about a boy who's like, if I ran the zoo, my animals would be better than just like lame lions or whatever. So it has him going to places and finding these really exotic animals like this. I can show you. This is like a deer with like really cool horns. And he's like, this would be in my zoo. It'd be much more interesting. And then there's this page where he travels to the African island of Yurka and meets these guys. So
Wait,
that's not great.
wait,
That's
what
that's
is it? I can.
it's a depiction of African people
Oh, oh, that's bad.
in a bad way. So that's what people were like, we don't want to.
For the record, when I said sweet, I couldn't actually see
Okay,
the details of it.
now you see. So that's the thing. That's the thing. They were like, we know what? We're not, that could offend some people, so we're not going to publish it anymore. On Beyond Zebra, where they talk about different letters that are different than other letters, he does a lot of like, I think he's doing like people from India or cultures where they wear turbans, and they're a lot like this. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So it's just like not wonderful. So they stopped publishing them. The Cat's Quizzer, which he wrote in the 1970s, so like he's not really like 100% over the Japanese thing. There's this page where it says, "How old do you have?" This is like a trivia book. How old do you have to be a Boy Scout, to be a Girl Scout, to drive a car, to fry an egg, to vote for president, to be the president? And the last question is, how old do you have to be a Japanese? Ted.
What what does that mean?
I think the answer is zero. You can be Japanese when you're born, but like I think
I know,
that's
but
what they
what
were.
is like? I don't understand it.
That's it's a trivia question
Why is it offensive?
because it says be a Japanese.
Oh, it's the A parts.
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But the answer is all Japanese are Japanese the minute they are born, which is fair. I think. I mean, honestly, I just skimmed through this trying to find something offensive, and that was the one thing that I saw. I don't know what else there is in here. It's probably something else. He did draw this weird picture of a dinosaur that I'm not 100% on board with. Like, what dinosaur is that, Ted? No
I
idea.
mean, he did put fur where it didn't belong, and
Yeah.
clearly he did that with scales.
Yeah. He also, the answer is to fry an egg. How old do you need to be to fry an egg? The correct answer is go ask your mother. So that's nice. That's cute. Um, so this did spark a debate on cancel culture. My boomer aunt on Facebook was like, they're canceling Dr. Seuss, blah. And it's like, no, they're not. They're just saying that these particular images might offend people, so we're going to stop publishing them. If you have them, you can have them. If you want to find them, you can find them. But that's what we're doing, which is totally the right of the publishers to do that. And something that we've learned just last week with the Grimm brothers is they did that all the time. They toned stuff down because people were like, it's going to scare kids too much. So they would change it or they would write a disclaimer at the beginning of it. Like, that's not new, you
So
know?
you usually, I will say, my default when someone's like, "We got to cancel someone," I'm like, I fuck that. I'm like, clearly they're nutcases. But I will say that like we all were given Dr. Seuss as little
Hmm.
kids, and I would think that if I was like a Japanese American kid or an African American kid, and I'm being depicted that way in front of my like in the book in front of like class, like that would make me feel otherized, and that wouldn't feel great. So in this situation, and only in this
Look
situation,
at you right now. I'm
will I
like really
agree
impressed.
with not canceling Dr. Seuss, but like, yeah, have the publishers remove the images so that people
Yeah.
don't, little kids don't feel like they're different and
Yeah.
bad different.
Yeah. And then I think so like during that time I have this book of these two books that are old, like 100 years old, that were my great grandma's of children's stories. And I was skimming through them and there was another one that depicted African people like absolutely terribly, and I just ripped it out. I was
You
like,
know, I'll t
I can do this. I can make the
okay.
decision myself.
I don't even know if this is like, I might have to cut this out. So I went to like a super white like school, right?
Hmm.
And like me and this other black kid were the only like non-white people in our class. And we
Hmm.
obviously got taught about like Jim Crow and slavery and everything else. And it was like done in like super detail. Like here's
Hmm.
when we had like black versus white fountains, and here's what
Yeah.
someone's back looked like for not doing their jobs the way that the masters wanted to. And I always remember that I was like, can we tone this down a little bit? Like there's only one kid that
You know,
is seeing this and like having something reflected back. Like like obviously
it's a little, yeah.
teach this stuff. Like I don't know. It just like I was like in my mind, I was like, it just created this weird dynamic where I was like, we're all like everybody's just like looking at him like, how does he feel right now? Like like
Yeah.
you made him stand out more in a way that was like receiving attention that you probably don't want to be receiving.
And I don't know the answer to that. Like I do think you should tell the truth,
No, of
you
course you
know,
should tell
about
the
things, of
truth.
course. But then also like we talked about this, we talked about the Alamo, that when people talk about the Alamo, they stop in classes and stare at the Mexican kids, you know, and
Yeah.
like blame and like look at them like how are they feeling, you know? So yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I don't know the answer. But yeah, but I feel like that's a really fair experience to have, you
That's
know?
what the Dr. Seuss thing when you showed me. Literally, my first thought went to that kid. I was like,
Yeah.
shit. Like, we were all reading this stuff, and there was probably like an Asian kid in class I didn't notice, and
Hmm.
he saw that picture of the Asian person and was like, oh, so we're just like jokes to
Yeah.
everyone here. Like, that's not nice.
It's a lot. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's really interesting how we read things based on who we are and the time that we're in, which is literally exactly what the Grimm brothers were talking about, thinking about talking about like laws and the time that you're in and things like that, you know?
Yeah.
So super interesting. Um, so again, he did tone a little bit of it down, not all the way, but still. Um, during the war itself, he did political posters, obviously. In 1943, he joined the army as a captain, and this is kind of cool. He was a commander of the animation department of the 1st Motion Picture Unit of the United States Army Air Forces.
That's an
Go ahead.
awesome job.
Like that's what Reagan did during the war too. He was like in the motion picture unit, you know?
Do you get a purple star like if you draw really fast?
Maybe.
That was a
Um, So he wrote films that included things like Your Job in Germany, Our Job in Japan, and one called Private Snafu. I can't even imagine the shenanigans that Private Snafu gets into. But they're training videos, basically like, I mean, videos are training movies, basically like Your Job in Germany is from 1945 about Europe after World War II. Same with Our Job in Japan. And Our Job in Japan is 17 minutes long. You can watch it on Wikipedia. I watched a little bit of it. What it is about is going to Japan after the war and how do you talk to those people and how do you work with them? It was seen as being sympathetic to the Japanese citizens, and General MacArthur hated it and was like, absolutely not. But it basically, the parts, as I was like fast forwarding and watching 2 minutes of a 17-minute movie, people aren't bad, but they were led by bad people. And one of the things they say, the narrator says, is what do we do with them when we get there? They can make trouble or they can make sense, and it's our job to make them make sense. And so it talks about like the religion in Japan and how easy it was for them to follow like a dictator and one person. And then it shows them like frisking people on the street and saying things like, we're sticking around and we're taking no more chances. So it's a lot, but was meant for people who were going to Japan after the war and to be like, how do we deal with this? Um, it turned into a longer documentary, which has a very confusing name called Design for Death, which is basically the same thing but extended. But I don't know why it's called Design for Death. That feels very extreme. But and you can't find that. I couldn't find it. Wasn't on Wikipedia, but
I
right.
would love to see the Dr. Seuss illustrations for Design for Death.
Well, it's not a cartoon. It's like a
I know, I know. I'm just
yeah.
saying if he converted it.
No, totally. And so actually he and his wife Helen both were the credited writers for Design for Death, and it won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Film in 1947. So that's just like the stuff that we need to know about his wartime pursuits and such. So after the war, they moved to La Jolla. We already talked about. Beautiful, near San Diego, beachy, very nice. And in 1954, Life magazine published a thing about children not wanting to learn how to read because the books were boring and that kids weren't excited about literacy, and the literacy rate in America was really, really low. So that's when he decided to do something about it. And literacy rates are not great. So even today in America, 54% of U.S. adults have a literacy level below sixth grade. 20% of U.S. adults are functionally literate. Like they
Wait,
can't.
20%?
Mhm. 45 million U.S. adults are functionally literate and read below a fifth grade level, and that's 20%. 44% of U.S. adults do not read one book in a year. Um, and yeah, so those are some of the things that like are happening right now. And if you have a literacy rate below like fifth and sixth grade, it's hard for you to do things like understand the prescriptions you're taking, like real day-to-day stuff.
I
That
was
was
gonna
all on the
say
news
hold
this
a
week.
job or
Yeah,
figure out how to sign up for student aid for your kids to go to college.
ex
Like
oh my God, exactly. Yeah. So
also nobody can read their prescriptions. It's just fucking scribbles that the
I
doctor.
mean, well, like the 17 pages you get from the Walmart when you pick it up at the pharmacy, I always throw those away. But like, imagine I would need to
You
read
should
those.
be reading those.
I throw them away, but that's not my literacy rate. I just toss them in the garbage because I don't care. Um, So that's now, but 1954 was also bad. So he decided to make books more fun. And guess what the first book he wrote to make books more fun? I don't have it.
Is it Grinch?
It's Cat in the Hat, but Grinch was
I
second.
love Cat in the Hat.
Yeah. So Cat in the Hat, The Grinch is so good. Miles and I read The Grinch together today. Green Eggs and Ham, also
Green
very
Eggs and
fun.
Ham, amazing. Yep.
And a lot of people bought them. Many of his books are at like the very beginner level. They're easy to read, they're fun, their rhyming is fun, all of that. So that's what makes him one of the top selling authors of all time. In 1955, Dartmouth gave him an honorary doctorate of human letters. Um, and he joked then he had to be called Dr. Seuss because then he really had a doctorate, an
That's kind
honorary
of cute.
one, which is cute. So he wasn't able to go to Dartmouth in 1955 to accept that award because Helen was getting sick. So it sounds like she had some like physical and some mental ailments that were happening. And then in the next 10 years or so, they're living in La Jolla, and Ted and Helen meet another couple. And they become good friends. And he begins to have an affair with a woman named Audrey, who's married to a real doctor, which I thought was funny.
So
Pretty
hold on.
much a
He's
real,
a real doctor now, though. Come on.
I mean, he has an honorary doctorate of humane letters. He doesn't have he's not going to perform surgery on you. Like if they
I
say,
mean,
is there a doctor on this plane? I'm not going to ask for him.
so Shaq has an honorary doctorate. Are you saying Shaq's not a doctor?
Yes, I'm saying if someone's like, is there a doctor on this plane? I guess I do want Shaq to be the one that comes to my rescue.
Yeah, don't get yourself canceled for no reason, Taylor.
Well, I don't want like a doctor of poetry from Harvard. I don't want that guy, you know?
No, but nobody wants that guy.
Um, so he begins an affair with Audrey, and on October 23rd, 1967, Helen dies by suicide. She wrote a letter to
How old
him
was she?
she was 69, I believe. So pretty older.
Jeez, like just let the time run out. Like just let the shot clock's about to call it
Well, I think
anyways.
I mean, he was very, I think probably pretty obviously having this affair. And she wrote in a letter to him, her letter was, Dear Ted, what has happened to us? I don't know. I feel myself in a spiral going down, down, down into a black hole from which there is no escape, no brightness. And loud in my ears from every side, I hear failure, failure, failure. I love you so much. I'm too old and enmeshed in everything you do and are that I cannot conceive of life without you. My going will leave quite a rumor, but you can say I was overworked and overwrought. Your reputation with your friends and fans will not be harmed. Sometimes think of the fun we had through all the years. So it sounds like he was trying to leave her. And she was like, I can't do that. Um, the next year, like within a year, Audrey would get divorced and they would get married in 1968. They would remain married until his death in 1991. There's a New York Times
Dr.
article.
Seuss lived till 91?
Mhm.
No way. Dude, I thought you were gonna start telling us the story about how like he was born right after the Civil War. Like I didn't realize he was not that old.
No, not that old. Not that old.
We were alive at the same time as Dr. Seuss.
I know. I feel like I wonder what happened the day he died. Did our parents tell us? Were we sad? You know,
I don't know.
they must have. Well, they must have said it in school, you know?
Yeah, they must have.
Yeah. Um, So Audrey had two kids and they sent them away because Ted didn't even want to be around kids. So they just like ended up living together. She gets super rich. Like obviously this one they're just absolutely bananas rich. The article is in the New York Times about her is from 2000, but that's right before the movie The Grinch comes out, and she's like about to get a fucking windfall of cash. Like the first weekend The Grinch was in theaters, it made like $150 million and just like more and more from that. And obviously, like part of it was all that was all part of his estate, so she got a ton of money from that. And it's weird, but I don't hate it. The Jim Carrey one. Some people hate it, some people love it. I don't hate it.
I never saw that.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think it's cute. Um, Dr. Seuss wins a special Pulitzer Prize in 1984, citing his contribution over nearly half a century to the education and enjoyment of America's children and their parents. He passed away of cancer on September 24th, 1991. His ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean. He has so many, like you said, museums and things named after him. On April 4th, 2012, the Dartmouth Medical School was renamed the Audrey and Theodore Geisel School of Medicine because they donated so much money to the college. And there's a crater on the planet Mercury that is named after him as well, which is cool. Um, so some of his political works that I want to talk about, and this is what Morgan was like, we have to talk about this, which I totally agree with. So like we said, he was like a liberal Democrat, followed FDR, very anti-fascist. So some of his books, in the best order I can get them in 1954, he wrote Horton Hears a Who, which is, tolerance and empathy. This is the one that he had dedicated to his friend in Japan. Have you ever read Horton Hears a Who?
I'm sure I have. It's not one that I remember off the top of my head though.
So Horton the elephant picks a clover, which doesn't look like a clover, it looks like a dandelion, and he hears someone on it. He hears someone talking to him, and he has like big ears. No one else can hear it. Everybody makes fun of him, and he realizes that there's a whole city, like a whole planet, on a speck of dust inside this clover. He has and he's trying to save them. And his friends try to get rid of the clover, tell him he's going crazy. He ends up finding them. He makes the who's are the people who live on the clover, make as much noise as possible to let other people hear them. And the tagline is, "A person's a person, no matter how small," which is like,
It's
be
pretty
nice to
cute.
people. And then pro-life people decided that that was a good slogan for them.
I hate
And
politics so much. Yeah. Like legitimately, like why is everything so horrible? Like
horrible. And Audrey was like, absolutely not, and donated a lot of money to Planned Parenthood. So
Oh my God,
bless
that's
her heart.
so funny. That's
Um,
how do you
this-
do that with Horton Hears a Who? Come on.
I know, I know. There's another one that I can't show you a picture of, but it is called Yertle the Turtle, from 1958. It's an anti-fascist story about a turtle that builds um, a throne on the backs of other turtles, just trying to like get bigger and bigger. And obviously, the turtle symbolized Hitler, and you know how there shouldn't be totalitarian government. And then the book was removed from schools for being, quote, too political in some places, because of the quote. I know up on top you are seeing great sights, but down here on the bottom, we too should have rights. That feels good. But
Wait,
people were
what
like,
year was
that's too
it?
political. 1958.
Yeah, I mean, like, of course, yes, of course that would get banned. Yeah, Hoover was wearing dresses and spying on MLK and reading through his news. Like, oh yeah, of course they're gonna ban that.
Why is Hoover on a telephone? He's on everyone else's. I shouldn't be on mine. Um, there's one about the Sneetches, which is anti-prejudice and empathy, which Miles and I also read this morning, but it is the star-bellied Sneetches and the ones that don't have stars on their belly. That's all the only difference between them is stars, and the star-bellied Sneetches think they're better than the other Sneetches. And then a man comes to town and he says, I'll give you a star. I'll take your star off. They go back and forth till they can't remember who had a star to begin with or why it was important. And then the guy runs away with all their money. So it's like, you're dumb. For like little prejudices, like everyone comes on. It's quite lovely. Um, the star-bellied Sneetches and the plain-bellied Sneetches. So it's the absurdity of judging others based on superficial differences, obviously. There's also the Lorax. This is the one that we talked about a little bit last week. The Lorax with his Joshua trees is definitely about environmentalism. The movie The Lorax is quite cute. Danny DeVito is the Lorax. In the thing, but it is about a man who finds a place, finds this tree, starts chopping down all the trees to make a product called a thneed, which is a really fun word to say. A thneed is something that everyone needs. It's like a sweater, a scarf, a thing, whatever. And he chops down every single tree until there are no more trees, and the Lorax is telling you this story, and he gives you the very last seed. Um, or no, not the Lorax. The Onceler is the person who actually chopped down all of the trees. He's telling you the story. He says, plant this one last seed, and then the Lorax and all his friends may come back. Wait, I'm going to read it. At the very end, catch, says the Onceler. He's let something fall. It's a truffula seed. It's the last one of all. You're in charge of the last of the truffula seeds, and the truffula trees are what everyone needs. Plant a new truffula, treat it with care, give it clean water, and feed it fresh air. Grow a forest, protect it from axes that hack, then the Lorax and all of his friends may come back. So that's pretty on the nose for stop chopping down trees, everyone.
Why are you looking
Yes.
at me? I don't even. I literally. Actually, you know what? I chopped down a tree like last week, but that was a
You
once in
did
a lifetime.
not.
Okay, I didn't chop it down. I paid someone to come chop the tree down. It
Oh my
was
God,
gonna
hilarious.
fall. It was dead. It was a dead tree. It was gonna fall in my house.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you. It's hilarious. There's two more that I'll mention. There's one called Marvin K. Mooney, Will You Please Go Now? Which is about a child who needs to be asked to go all the time. And I feel like this might be similar to this, I'm not going to get up today. Like the kid just doesn't want to do anything, story. But basically it's like, Martin, you have to go. You have to go. I don't have it, but that's the thing. And then right before Nixon resigned, Dr. Seuss took his own copy of Marvin K. Mooney, Will You Please Go Now, crossed off the words Marvin K. Mooney and wrote Richard Nixon, and then they like scanned it and put it in the paper as like a political commentary, which is cool.
You know what's funny is back then everybody thought Nixon was like this devil human being, and now in hindsight, like he voluntarily resigned office.
There's nothing, and I have no comment on that. Um, and then the last one is the Butter Battle book, which is a book about the Cold War. Essentially, it is about two opposing sides who are fighting over which side you butter your bread on. And they get so mad at each other that they continue to build up these great arms and these bombs, and they're just like staring at each other. And the bombs are just ready to drop, and they don't know when they will drop. But it's about something so trivial and so stupid, and everyone's so scared. So it's definitely about the Cold War. That actually reminded me, in Sneetches, there's another story that I think is very similar about two people. Um, there's two Zacks, these little creatures. So there's a north-going Zax and a south-going Zax, and one always walks north, one always walks south. They run into each other and they won't move, so they just stare at each other, and civilization grows around them, and they never budge from their like silly thing that they're
What is it?
thinking. A
Just
lot
about
of it,
stubbornness or
yeah, about stubbornness. And like what you'll miss if you're stubborn, and like what people will spend their time thinking about if you're thinking about like superficial crap and trying to blow people up for the way they butter their bread, you know?
I
Quite
mean,
fun.
it is very, very cute. It also makes me wonder, like, how do adults become like so different from each other when we were all raised on the same diet of like Dr. Seuss? You know, like the
They're
animal and the
really,
like earth and the humanity stuff like soaked in super deep into my brain. And that's why I don't know. I don't get how not everybody's not like that.
I know. That is such a wonderful question, how you can consume the same things and get different results.
Yeah, I guess
I don't know how you can be raised in the same household and think so differently, you know?
it's like yeah, I mean that yeah, that's me and my brother. Like I would gladly sacrifice a house that has dog hair and drool and is loud to have a dog, and he would rather like have a clean house and hey, doesn't want to be around the dog ever. Like, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
We went to the same school district too. It's even
No,
weirder.
I no, I know. It's like it's it's interesting. I don't know what it is. But I do love me a Dr. Seuss book. I
Have you
love that
been
Miles loves
to?
Horton Hatch's egg so much.
You guys gotta. You know what? Actually, yeah. I think California Adventures has a Dr. Seuss land.
Ooh, I bet. I know that there is one. I didn't look it up, but that sounds fun too.
Well, there's definitely one in Orlando. I've been to the one in Orlando, but I'm pretty sure the one in Anaheim has it too. So, I
Cool.
mean, if Miles is like that big into it, like that would totally be worth the trip for him. You know what? I'm
You're right.
positive it has one because maybe it was Universal, not on not California Adventures. Yeah, I think it's Universal. But they had this like very cute little Dr. Seuss like train that like when I got into it, I realized it was for kids, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna come off this thing. I'll also have a great time. That's the third time, by the way, Taylor, I've gotten into like a roller coaster thing that was like made for children and nobody stopped me. And I got in and I realized that it wasn't meant to suit my body.
So like I know that we're this is an audio medium, but is tall.
Oh
You're
yeah,
not a
yeah,
small
yeah.
person. And yeah, that's
I'm also
hilarious.
vertically and horizontally. Like I'm also like a bigger. I'm gonna call
Yeah.
myself husky.
And I don't think that you should be on a child's ride.
No. It's not a good. It's not good for me.
Oh my
Not
gosh,
good for
that's
my
so
health.
funny. Um, Also, I think maybe a follow-up to your episode you did a while ago about roller coaster accidents. Um, my I found Florence under the table watching a YouTube video about people who had died at Disneyland.
Oh
I was like,
no.
Florence, I get this. I get you, but stop it.
Yeah, like I think I was like, yeah, I mean, I had to have been like 15, 16 before I discovered like Faces of Death and all those.
But that's when it came out,
That's when it came out. I guess if it was
you
around
know?
earlier, I probably would have sought it out. Also, kids are maturing younger every generation. Well, are they? Are they going the backwards way? I guess they're
I
going
don't
the other
know.
way. I guess you're maturing later in life, the older we get in time.
I don't know. I think it's earlier.
No, because think about it. Like, if it was like the 1700s, I'd be dead right now, and you'd be like
Oh,
a
sure,
great
sure, sure.
grandmother. Like, it needs to go in the other direction.
That's true. It's true. Not great.
Um,
Um,
that was fun, Taylor. That brought back a lot of
Thanks.
memories. Yeah, a lot of fun memories.
Yeah, it's fun. Fun to read. And after you read a couple of them in a row, you think in rhyme for about an hour.
Hey,
And that's
can I
really
give
fun.
can I throw out a special request?
Uh-huh.
Goosebumps. R.L. Stein.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's still around. Like, I mean, probably is he still around? Is R.L. Stein
Yeah.
dead?
No, I think it's still alive because I think that there is some episodes of Castle where he's like a writer who's like pretending to be a detective where he like has a group of writers that he plays poker with, and one of them is definitely R.L. Stein.
He has written 240 books. This guy's got to be a billionaire. Is he a billionaire by now?
I mean, he must be. Oh,
R.L. Stein net
he's
worth.
lower than Dr. Seuss on this random list in Wikipedia, but higher than Stephen King. R.L. Stein net worth.
Weird. He looks like David Axelrod, doesn't he?
200 million. He does. Stephen King.
God, he's so rich.
Very fun. He was in his prime, he was making $40 million a year.
Man, he deserves it. I mean, his books, like the only I firmly believe the reason I'm so obsessed with horror movies right now and into haunted houses, it had to have been R.L. Stein books, like Goosebump books when I was a kid.
I think it's like, I don't know, I read a couple of them, but I was too scared.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like I want to revisit them maybe, or like, I liked, there was like, I think I liked the Goosebumps movie was dumb in like a fun way.
I thought it was so fun. It
Yeah.
wasn't even remotely scary.
Yeah.
It was like Cabin in the Woods kind of vibe, where it was like stupid fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Oh, that's fun. Yeah. So that's all I have for today. I do have one thing that I wanted to remember to tell you. It's not that exciting, but my brother did see Buster Murdoch at the airport, which is like funny and weird that he's out there living a life.
I mean, what is he supposed to do?
Well, he like potentially murdered someone, remember?
Oh, that's right. He did. He did kill
And
that girl.
he's like a weird orphan because his dad's in jail and his dad killed his mom and his brothers. He's just like living by him, I don't know, with all his money and like all this stuff happened to him and he's like traveling places. I guess he like would do that, but I just thought I think that's wild.
Was Kincaid on the flight with him or
I don't think so. He says, I'm at the airport. I said, what was he doing? He goes, I don't know, just like living his life. And I was like, weird. And he's like, I know. That's it.
he'll be fine. He'll
I'm
be
not worried
fine.
about him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's so funny. Did he
I
take a
know.
picture by any chance?
No, I can't imagine that was hilarious.
Yeah. I'm literally looking up where I can buy literally like the entire collection of Goosebump books, and I don't think they sell those.
I bet you can get them on eBay or something. Or you could just start collecting them like if you go to thrift stores and just like manifest them. That's what I did for the Harry Potter books. I was like, I want all the Harry Potter books and like they were all of the different thrift stores. I manifested it.
How many of those are there?
Um, 7.
Okay, that's not that many.
No.
That's different than buying 240
Yeah, yeah,
books. This is
yeah.
gonna like I'm gonna have to cash out my 401k to buy this. Like different
Um,
situation.
it is also I'm sorry, everyone. I remember 2 things I forgot to tell you. Remember, I called you to remind you to tell you that Christian Andersen went to the Grimm brothers' house, and they were like, "We don't know who you
Yes.
are. You have to leave," which is
Yes.
hilarious. And another thing that I'm forgetting that I forgot to tell you during this episode is that some of Dr. Seuss's political cartoons were against people who were like America first because they were like trying to be isolationists and keep us out of the war. And one of the people that he was particularly mad at was the American Nazi Charles Lindbergh. Because Lindbergh was like, "Oh, come on, we don't need to be a part of this war. Let Europe figure it out," because he was obviously rooting for the Nazis.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know?
Wait, so Dr. Seuss was anti-Limburg, is what you're saying?
Yes,
Got it.
because he could tell that that man loved Goebbels.
There's a
Just
tin
not good.
collection of R.L. Stein. Oh my God, Taylor, am I gonna do this?
Yeah,
20,
I've seen you.
20 books for 55 bucks? That's not bad.
No, I've seen you with one book. You might have to get a shelf if you get these.
You know what, Taylor? I don't need this shit.
Literally, all I think about is when I will have a library to be able to put all my books in. So like,
Yeah, I'm working my way up. I'm almost there.
good for you.
Not really.
Um, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Fars.
No, thank you. That was awesome. I love those stories that bring back like elements of my childhood that
Hmm.
also only mildly involve canceling someone. When it's like a
Yeah.
full-on canceling, it's like, please
Mm,
stop ruining my childhood, people.
yeah, I agree.
This one was a justifiable miniature version of that. So, anyways, thank you for sharing. Do you have anything to read off other than the Buster Murdoch
No, no,
situation?
that's it. But thanks, friends. And if you want to follow us in the 10,000 places, we are at Doomed to Fail Pod on everything, I think, that I can think of at the moment. So find us there. We're on YouTube.
Yeah, and if we're not on something, like tell us what it is because we can't keep up with social media except
We're
TikTok. I don't. Are we on TikTok?
we are on TikTok. And
Man, good
because
for you.
I mean, I don't do it all the time. We do get a good amount of views on it, and people like save our videos because I think the thing that with TikTok that I do that I post cross post to other things is I show my face, which I'm like not against, but like I think people like it better when they see the people behind it, you know?
That's true.
So
The final reveal is going to be seeing my face. That's like if you guys listen, if we get 1 million listeners, the gift for that is seeing my face.
that's hilarious. You're like absolutely not mysterious because everyone knows your full name is on the episodes, but that's fine.
And on our cartoon
That's
version
true.
is on
They'll
the
all like you.
logo.
Have you been putting those flyers around Austin?
I'm working on it, Taylor. I haven't gotten around to it. I just got back from Dallas.
Put them around Dallas. Cool. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you, new listeners. Hope you like it. We have a lot of episodes, so go back and listen to them.
Yes. And any suggestions, ideas, thoughts you have, write to us at doomtofailpod@gmail.com. Follow us on the socials at doomtofailpod. And that's it. I'll go ahead and cut it off if you're good, Taylor.
That's it. Thank you.
Boom.